Welcome to the Choose Hard podcast, the one and only fitness and nutrition podcast that goes way beyond just training and nutrition and helps you transform your body and your mind. I'm your host, Cody McBroom, and obviously my job with this podcast is to help you choose hard so that you can grow as an individual, you can challenge your mind, challenge your body, and transform. But it is also my job to bring leading experts in different topics and industries to help guide you and educate you so that you can stop just listening and following to the information you read and see online anywhere, and you can actually investigate, educate, and experience yourself. And when you do this, you are empowered to actually take control of your life and make decisions that are going to help you grow and be more successful. And so today, I dove into one of the topics that has been probably one of the most commonly asked and requested topics for me to do a podcast on, and that is peptides. And so what did I do? I went and found the leading expert in the world on peptides. This guy has read some of the top and most well-known books in the entire world when it comes to both hormones and peptides. He also owns a company called BioLongevity Labs that actually produces and sells peptides for you to improve your healing properties, to improve your optimization and longevity, and improve your performance. So we're going to cover all three of those categories. We're going to show you how peptides can help you heal your body, whether we're talking about joints, ligaments, injuries, tears, or even gut health. We're going to dive into optimization and show you how they can help you improve your health and live a longer, healthier life. And we're going to show you how they can build more muscle, lose more fat, and improve your performance in and out of the gym. This podcast dives so deep. I want you to listen closely. You might have to go back a little bit. You might even have to slow the speed down because we went off. I couldn't believe how much information we packed into this 1 hour podcast. So listen in, and as the podcast unfolds, you're going to see us get pretty hyped up and excited about this topic about a quarter of the way in, and then it just starts unraveling. So really listen in, take notes, study this material. I think it's going to be so helpful for you. This is one of the topics in the industry that is growing, and it's growing for a reason because this can change people's lives for the long haul. Now, I want to also mention that because Jay owns BioLongevity Labs and you can actually get peptides that are produced in America from his company, we're going to leave a show note discount code in the description. So just check the description. You can click that link. You can put in the promo code to save some money on a peptide order if you feel like you need peptides. And if not, check out his content, check out this podcast, ask me questions. You can email me, find out if peptides are right for you, and then go that route. But either way, I want to leave a note in here in this intro to let you know that there is a discount code for you when ordering peptides yourself. Now, without any further ado, let's get into this jam-packed, informative episode on peptides with the one and only Jay Campbell.
The greatest things in life all start with a challenge.
You must accept that everything is hard before it gets easy.
Everything you want in life begins with a hard path.
All right, Jay, I'm excited about this, man. I have had countless people, I am not exaggerating, countless people request content done on peptides, more content on peptides. People want to know more about it. It is a very hot topic right now, a lot of conversation around it. So selfishly, I'm excited to chat with you. I have dabbled a little bit. I'm way more familiar with HRT, TRT, stuff like that. But I think peptides is something that is growing so quickly, and there's just so much information out there that can be unpacked. So I'm excited to talk to an expert like yourself on this topic. But before we get into that rabbit hole and start diving through, fill the audience in with who is Jay Campbell in a nutshell, and what got you off on this peptide journey? Like, what started your process and journey and interest in peptides?
Sure. So first off, my name is Jay Campbell. I'm 54 years old. I was the guy that wrote the #1 selling book of all time on hormone optimization. So if you want to go down that path, I can talk about that better than 99.99999% of people on the planet. So if you want to go down that path, we can. And then I wrote the second best-selling book in the history of the world on testosterone optimization. So, I mean, honestly, my internet claim to fame is on hormones. But at the same time that I was learning about hormones 26 years ago, I was also learning about peptides. When I tell people I've been using peptides since 2004, they kind of say, that's bull. There's no way, bro. What are you talking about? And I'm like, nah, bro. I mean, I've been on therapeutic testosterone since 1998. So, I started using peptides in 2004. Really at the same time that I was learning about using hormones, I was also learning about peptides, because at that time in the world, there was no books. The internet was in its infancy. The signal to noise ratio on the internet was insane. There was no noise. It was only signal. Nowadays, mostly noise. In fact, 95% of people that talk about peptides don't have a clue about anything about peptides. They literally listen to people like me or read my book or listen to me and regurgitate me. And it's not just me. There's other people that are smart about peptides. But it's insane. Like, the whole peptide space is right now is a laughing stock because there's so many idiots talking about peptides. There's people out there selling plant-based peptides. I mean, it's so insane that like, me and my inner circle, we laugh about it every day because we're like, how could it have gotten to this when just 3 years ago, the average person on the street didn't even know what a peptide was? You know what I mean? Like, I've been in this space, like I said, since using them since 2004, in the space, like the research chemical space since like 2012. And truthfully, Cody, I never wanted to get into the space like I have now because it was a gray area. I mean, it was never illegal. It's not illegal. I'd like to make that as a clarification, but it's not FDA approved. It's not clinical, so to speak. So, there's like, it's a weird market, put it that way, the research space. I mean, obviously most people realize that if you purchase research-based peptides to research on yourself or your hamster or your lab rat or whatever, it's legal, but it's not FDA approved. Doctors are not buying their peptides from research chemical companies. So the whole like market is very, very gray. And so I always just kind of stayed out of it because I was like, I don't really want to be involved in something like that. But then obviously, RFK came into the marketplace, started to talk about peptides. People needed to heal from the vaccine, started to talk about peptides. And so really in the last 2 years, we've had this like renaissance in the mainstream where now everyone's talking about peptides. And that's why I was telling you that like the average person that talks about peptides and tries to coach people on peptides has been using them for 6 months. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's become like a joke. And that's, unfortunately, that's the problem for most people because they think the peptides are magic bullets. And we can talk about all that in this podcast and go down the rabbit hole with you and stuff. But it's sad because unfortunately, there's not enough. The signal is way less than the noise when it comes to talking about peptides.
Yeah. So just to provide context for anybody who maybe doesn't fully understand what peptides are, Can you give me the definition, like the let's say like the science base, like the regurgitated
basically
definition of a peptide, and then also like what you use them for? What kind of people actually need these?
Sure. So peptides are basically signaling molecules. They're fractionated proteins. The difference between an injectable peptide and an oral peptide is the length of the chain. So short chain protein molecules or amino acid profiles are oral based peptides, and injectable based, which are the most highest impact delivery system and most that people know about, are longer chains. And so they're found organically in the human body. Obviously, they are synthesized by a chemist in a laboratory to be used for many different purposes. There's probably about 53 peptides right now, in circulation that people are familiar with, the scientific industry, the medical industry, the clinical industry, the research industry. But there's thousands of peptides that could be used that we just haven't brought them into the marketplace, from a synthesization standpoint. So very, very interesting thing, though, because when you look at petroleum distillate medications, which is what comes from big pharma, when they break down in the body and at the tissue level, they create side effects because, again, petroleum distillate, which is, an oil residue inside the body or inside the cells, as it breaks down, causes other chain reactions and technically side effects. Whereas with peptides, and then if you want to go deeper, bioregulators, which come from Russia, which are a form of peptides, when they're in the human body, they do not cause side effects because when they break down, they just break down into inert substances. And those substances are just used by the body or excreted by the body. So you have a lot greater impact, I would say, from using peptides or bioregulators in that a lot of them are tissue specific, so they work or target like one biological system or one organ system. And they don't, when they break down, leave any kind of residue or anything behind that would cause other issues. If you look at big pharma today, like a majority of medications that are sold in the marketplace are actually to cover up the side effects or the problems systemically that are caused by the other medications that are people taking, right? So you've got like 60 and 70-year-old people who've been on medications for 20 years, and a lot of the medications they take are to cover the side effects of the other medications. So it's insane, how big pharma works that thing, but you would never have that issue with peptides.
So first question on all this, is there a difference inside of regarding benefits to injectable versus oral peptides? When I think peptides, I've just always thought of injectable.
Yeah.
Do injectable typically work better, or is it more peptide specific?
So it's a good question. The highest impact delivery system for any peptide is always injectable. And the reason that is because it crosses the blood-brain barrier fastest and also gets into portal circulation fastest. In fact, whenever you inject any kind of substance or a pharmaceutical drug, peptide, bioregulator, whatever, insulin, because it gets into portal circulation fastest, it's always going to be most effective, and that's why it's the highest impact. But there are peptides that can be taken intranasally, in a mist, inhaled, transdermally, in a cream or in a serum. And then obviously you can also take some that are oral. Oral peptides, by and large, and this technology is actually improving in the marketplace, so this will eventually change, but oral peptides, by and large, are only effective in the gut. So, because of first pass, most medications, they have to go through the small intestine, large intestine, and the liver. Peptides, again, being aqueous, and once they get in, they're going to be broken down after they get into the stomach pretty much by the small intestine or large intestine. So they're going to eventually not be as effective once they get through there. So that's why you're going to say, like, most oral peptides work in the gut or the microbiome much more efficiently than they would, for example, like in your shoulder, right? So let's say, for example, somebody got injured in their shoulder. They had a sprain, a tear, a ligament tear, or something like that, and they wanted to inject BPC or TB500, like right up in the top shoulder cap. They would get much better effect than they would if they were taking an oral version of BPC. But the oral version of BPCs do exist, like we sell them, but they're mostly targeting issues people have in the gut or in the microbiome, like SIBO, inflammation, basically, any kind of other pathogenic or virogenic response in the stomach. You can use certain peptides to attack that.
Can you explain in as simple as terms as possible, really, like how a peptide is made? Obviously, it's made by a chemist in a lab, but I think when we think hormones, it's a little bit easier because it's a synthetic hormone. We know what testosterone is. We know that it's a synthetically made version of testosterone that you inject when you are insufficient with natural.
By the way, do you know how they make testosterone?
I do not.
It's a trivia question. It's from yams. That's how they make therapeutic testosterone. Yeah. So all the oil-based injectable testosterones, which obviously there's multiple formats, propionate, cypionate, ananthate, then there's multiple esters. But yeah, they use yams to make synthetic or bioidentical testosterone. But it's a good question. I mean, again, it's essentially a sequence of amino acids. That's how they're made. So again, like something like BPC 157 is probably 15 to 20 chain amino acid length versus its oral form version, which is like 4 or 5. Right. But again, same molecule, just made differently based on like how long the half-life is and how long it'll stay bioactive in a human body after it's either injected or consumed.
And so are these amino acids currently present in the body?
Most of them, yes, most of them are. I mean, in fact, like BPC 157, let's just talk about that because most people know what BPC 157 is. It's like the most well-known peptide in the world. It stands for body protective compound. You make that in your human, it's made that like basically in gastric juice. So it's just in gastric juice. So, obviously our salivary enzymes, our digestive enzymes, and they just can sequence that from a human cell and then obviously make that into a injectable format for injection or for research.
So are they taking cells and things that the body already makes and creating them in larger quantities that we don't produce that large of a quantity in so that we get a better result?
Yeah, that's how peptides are made, exactly.
And what can somebody, and I want to ask this specifically about BPC 157, just because sometimes it almost seems like, and maybe it is, a wonder drug, right? It's like this amazing magical healing drug, essentially. Like, what is it actually doing? What is that? Because you said for the gut, but also I've heard people using it for joints or tendons, ligaments. Like, what is this actually doing for us?
So BPC 157, again, body protective compound 157, is actually increasing what is known as angiogenesis. And angiogenesis is the increase in red blood cells and lymph, and basically all the soft tissue, fluid, IGF, all the stuff that comes when you're healing. So essentially, if you get a cut or a wound or a ligament tear or a sprain or a strain, the body has natural systems, which I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it's too technical for most people, but it has natural healing systems, and basically injecting BPC into the local area where the injury is accelerating the healing, right? So like you were saying, it's like a wonder drug. I mean, we call it the Wolverine healing protocol. If you use BPC 157 combined with TB500, which is thymosin beta 500, you get massive inflammation suppression or accelerated inflammation suppression and increased healing from the increased angiogenesis that BPC provides. So most people can heal somewhere between 7 to 10 times faster using a combination of BPC 157 and TB500. Now, there's other peptides that you can add into that stack that even make it faster, like copper peptide GHKCU, which is basically a bluish, purplish tinted peptide when it's injected. You can also use it transdermally. You can also use a serum in your scalp to regrow hair. Very, very powerful angiogenic peptide. You can throw that into that mix. And then the newest one on the market that very few people know about, like less than maybe 1% of the world, is a peptide out of Russia called Cardilax. And Cardilax is repairing, just like it sounds, cartilage better than anything else. So like one of the newest blends that my company is manufacturing, and it's not even in the marketplace yet, it will be probably hopefully for my Memorial Day, is TB, BPC, GHKCU, and Cardilax together. And that combination of those 4 peptides, and technically Cardilax is a bioregulator, but just not to get too technical, bioregulators are a form of peptides. They're just smaller chain. But all 4 of those together will accelerate healing at least 10x, and my guess is it'll be somewhere between 12 to 15x. Now, the one thing it won't do, and again, this depends on the healing capability of the individual and their genetics and their epigenetic factors and all that kind of stuff, but it most likely will not like stimulate bone growth. So it's not gonna increase or accelerate the healing of bone. But for soft tissue, it'll be 10 to 12 to 15x. It'll be insane. Like right now, the people that are using Cardilax, because it's very new that people are using this, but the report so far is like it's incredible. Like it literally does help to regrow and regenerate the nerve fiber bundles around cartilage. So like older people are going to love that product because of wear and tear is getting older. When you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s and you're training, you get a lot of wear and tear. I mean, I'm 54, so I know Cardilax is going to be that like ultimate bioregulator, injectable bioregulator to like get rid of wear and tear or eliminate or alleviate a lot of wear and tear stuff.
Would this be applicable to, say, somebody tears their meniscus, a labrum, like one of these kind of like a pad, like cartilage in between the 2 joints, instead of having surgery? I mean, I've had 2 meniscus surgeries, for example, and like
sure,
they didn't have this bad. The last surgery I had was in 2018, I think it was. So it's been a while, but like I'm thinking back then, instead of having surgery, is this something that you can actually inject into the area and potentially, depending on how big the tear is?
So, dude, it's an amazing question. So the answer is yes, potentially, for sure. In fact, like I just was on a podcast talking about this. If you're an orthopedic surgeon, you now have a dilemma because the system is set up to pay you a lot of money to perform an ACL reconstruction or a delt reconstruction or a meniscus or a PCL or, on and on it goes. All these major joints, and they tear, Achilles tendon rupture. But if you're aware about peptides and bioregulators, and of course we'd have to add PRP and stem cells and all these other things that are now out there, even lactophoresis. I mean, there's all these new things that are being done like offshore, because they're not technically legal in the United States according to the FDA, but all of those things are so profound from a healing standpoint. Again, soft tissue, not bone, soft tissue, tendon, ligament, that it is a question. And I would tell you that if you were 45 or older, because I understand, the strength, the tensile strength of a muscle or a tendon or a ligament at that age versus like if you were 18 in your early 20s, you would definitely not want to have the replacement surgery anymore because they're not going to be able to strengthen the tensile strength of that joint or that ligament at your age versus what they could do rebuilding it, regrafting it, reattaching it if you were in your late teens and early 20s. So it is becoming a moral dilemma because if you're an orthopedic surgeon, right, and you order an ACL reconstruction for a 52-year-old woman who's, tears her ACL skiing downhill, you make 40 or 50K off that. The insurance agency makes 60 grand or 55 grand because these things are $100,000 billable surgeries. Versus if you just write them a script for BPC, TB500, GHK, and Cardilax, that's $600 or $700. Likely, they're going to heal just as well with that naturally over time than they would if you did that surgery. So it's getting really weird. And there are some really smart orthopedic surgeons out there. I'll give one name shout out, Dr. Elizabeth Yurth at Mile High in Denver. She works on a lot of pro athletes, does a lot of replacement surgeries. And I just have conversations with her all the time about this. And she says, it's becoming tougher and tougher for me to like recommend these surgeries to older people because again, they're not going to heal any better than they would with the $500 or $600 peptide, prescription.
Yeah. Do you believe that, because one of the things I've thought a lot about is, between peptides, HRT, stem cells, there's all of these things at our disposal now that are being created that can essentially create like a body armor and just this longevity machine and everything that we want, but it's frowned upon, or you got to go out of the country to get stem cells. And people look at HRT and especially testosterone, things like that, as if it's this negative thing, when birth control is a kind of the same kind of idea, or thyroid medication is very acceptable. But as soon as you optimize, now it's looked at like a steroid. Do you think it stems from this loss of money that the government and big pharma and medical facilities will actually have? Is that really what's probably preventing? Because it doesn't seem like there's anything dangerous about 99% of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question, man. You ask really good questions. Great job. I mean, truthfully, I think the answer is yes. I think that the normies, look, I've been promoting it like this. I know we just met today, but like I've been saying this for 5 or 6 years. There's two different forms of healthcare now, right? Like there's the optimization healthcare path, and that comes cash pay out of your pocket. You're not going to get that from your general garden variety family doctor, or PPO doctor, or HMO doctor, right? Like those guys, it's like $50 copay, and then you get what you get. And obviously what you get is not optimization. I always tell people, like, if you want to do something funny, go down to your family doctor or your PPO doctor and say, hey doc, I want you to tell me what to do to live to 125. They'll look at you and be like, what the f are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? They'll be like, are you sick? Open up your mouth and say, ah, you know what I mean? Like, they're literally stewards of sick care and illness medicine. They're not here to optimize you. They're not pouring through your medical records to see how they can make you live longer and stronger. So like you as an individual, you have to take that decision, into your hands and become what I call the proactive scientist of your own health. And if you do that, then you're very, very unlikely to ever go to a regular doctor unless you're gut shot, you're in a horrible crash, you have shrapnel, you're bleeding out, and you need to be surgically sutured and put back together. You're not going to go to these people, right? So if you are like that, and obviously I would assume that you are, I know I am, my circle is, you have like a health optimization doctor, right? You have a doctor that writes your script for hormones, writes your scripts for peptides, writes your script for PRP, maybe even more experimental things that you do. And that's what you do, right? But even those people are taking stuff into their own hand. They order their own labs. I mean, I get my labs done at least once a year. And sometimes if I start doing other things, I'll do 2 labs a year, right? Like I have a deal with a lab company, Private MD Labs. People can go there. I have 4 different lab profiles set up, basic for people that don't have a lot of money, all the way up to elite, which costs $2,000 to get your labs done. But you see everything, right? Like it's the deepest dive under the hood, and you understand like all your risk factors, your inflammatory markers, et cetera. So it really just comes down to the individual, but your answer or your question and your answer is right. The system doesn't want healthy people. I had a very, very intelligent mentor, very famous surgeon. He doesn't like to be known that he mentored me, but he helped me with my books. You know who he is. He's a famous guy. And he told me in 2014 that he said if metformin and growth hormone were in the water supply, there wouldn't be any hospitals or emergency rooms, because there would be nobody sick. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the truth is that you individually and the people listening to this audience and watching this have to take matters into their own hand, because you're not going to get any kind of optimization healthcare. That's what I call it. If you just rely on them to help you. You got to seek people out. You got to listen to podcasts like this. You got to go on YouTube or Instagram and find doctors and find longevity medicine people that truly are into exploring how long and how strong you can live. And honestly, Cody, like I believe this. I mean, I don't even believe it. I know it. I don't use that word, but I think that anyone who does the right things and avoids, the probabilities of getting hit by a bus or in a car crash or something like that, I think you can live to 150, no problem. I mean, when I look at boomers right now, and obviously my dad will turn 80 this year. He doesn't know the first thing. And by the way, he's a multimillionaire, highly intelligent, educated guy. He's retired. My mom, God rest her soul, died 2 years ago of COVID. But, he doesn't have the first clue about nutrition. He doesn't use testosterone. He thinks I'm a drug dealer. He has no clue like who I am in this world and all the people that I've helped. And I've helped hundreds of thousands of people, and they live in a different world than you and I live in. But if you live in the world that you and I live in and you understand all these things, and you already mentioned it, like therapeutic testosterone, growth hormone agonist peptides, human growth hormone in microdoses, GLP-1 peptides. All these amazing tools that we now have at our disposal. All of them improve lifestyle markers. They improve longevity markers. They lower biological age. There's absolutely no reason, again, if you can avoid getting hit by a bus or a plane crash or just some random thing, that you can't live into your 120s, 130s, 140s and be robust and be vigorous. It's just, we haven't seen that yet because our generation, which, you know, I call myself the Gen X generation. In your generation, we're going to be the first generation that's going to be living to that long as we don't blow ourselves up. And you know, that's a coin flip, right? I mean, that's a possibility. But I really do think that there would be people from our generation right now, 40s, 50s, and even early 60s, who are doing all the right things, who are going to live at least into their 120s, 130s, and not be, you know, tepid and bent over at the spine and, you know, all the issues you see with boomers today.
Yeah. And, you know, unfortunately, there's just not enough people that, I think it's getting better, but there's not enough people seeking out information for themselves instead of just listening and following. And yes. I mean, I had a conversation. That's why I love doing this podcast. I had a conversation just literally a couple days ago with my dad, and he brought up, he's not on testosterone. He brought up testosterone. He's like, but I know, like I was told, you know, it's probably going to give me a stroke, so I don't want to do that. I'm just like,
exactly.
Hold on,
dude. My dad thinks it's cheating. My dad thinks it's cheating and unethical. Can you imagine how brainwashed that generation of people is?
Yeah, unless you're an NFL player and you literally can't take something because then you can't play. There's no cheating here. There's no cheating.
Oh, but trust me, they're on.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. They just know how to get around it. They just know how to take the test. Speaking of which, actually, this is something that was on my mind as you were kind of breaking some of this down is, and I don't know if you have the answer, but maybe just what you think it might be. Where was, you know, especially peptides, where were they first sought out or tested or because I'm just thinking of like, man, was this something like in military soldiers, or is this like athletes, or like who was the first specimen to be like, I'm using this because I'm going to get ahead of the competition, or was it completely opposite of that? You know?
No, dude, the Russians and the Bulgarians. So the Russians and the Bulgarians have been using peptides, no lie, since the 40s, late 40s, early 50s. And all of this stuff was, you know, again, when we had the whole fake Cold War, you know, I mean, don't even get me going. I could go down so many rabbit holes, but like all of that, you know, Eastern, Western bloc, the Russians were using all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's a reason the Russian athletes, when you see them, like the women and the men, you know, in the games, let's just call it the Olympic Games. And there were other games, but like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when you saw them and you saw us, you're like, what the is going on? You know what I mean? Like these guys are all on testosterone. They're all on, again, bioregulators, which are a form of peptides. I mean, they were on everything that they could be on. Blood doping, growth hormone, I mean, you name it, right? So it's like there's 60 years of research with peptides and bioregulators. You just have to use AI to translate Bulgarian and Russian textbooks and manuals and peer review to see this stuff, right? So, but they've been using this stuff for a long time. And then, like I said, like even in the underground performance enhancement community, bodybuilding community, that stuff, like, you know, people have been using peptides since the early 2000s. I mean, I started using Ipamorelin in 2004, and I had only been using therapeutic testosterone for 5 years previous to that. So it was just, you know, feeling it out and learning. And again, back then, there were no books, dude. You know, therapeutic testosterone wasn't prescribed unless you were really lucky. And how I got it prescribed was I ran into a Harvard-educated endocrinologist in Southern California, and it was, as I always say, there's no coincidences, only synchronicities, you know, because me meeting him led me to write all these books and do all the things I've done for this to advance this into the world. But now, I mean, testosterone is like on every corner. There's windmill clinics. You know, most of the clinics, like I said, that prescribe testosterone have no earthly idea what they're doing. Bro, when I say this, I'm not joking. 95% of doctors that prescribe testosterone have no idea what they're doing. They tell guys to take AIs. I mean, I'm telling you, it's getting worse. Like in 2017, 2018, and 2019, it started to get better. But then COVID came. And obviously, as you know, the internet, the signal to noise ratio on the internet became insane. And all the bro science that we have seemingly overcome about testosterone and estrogen and all this stuff just came back in mass. And now it's like out there. And, you know, dude, they have clinics and compound pharmacies making testosterone with AIs compounded into the medication. I mean, aromatase inhibitor is literally one of the most toxic drugs on the planet. When you use an AI and you use it to block your estrogen or block your testosterone from converting through aromatase into estrogen, you are literally shortening your lifespan. That is clinically provable It's insane that people do this. But again, that's the average doctor. They don't know. They don't teach doctors in medical school how to optimize people's hormones. It's insane.
It is insane. And it's, crazy enough, I'm on TRT and I was prescribed the very general,
Of course.
Unfortunately, it's very difficult to do research. I know more than most people because this is what I do for a living. I'm not on hormones to your level, but in this fitness and nutrition industry, right?
Yeah.
And there became a point where I requested to change my prescription. And they were basically tried to say no, and then I showed them blood work, and then showed them that I still haven't taken any of the aromatase inhibitors. Right. Oh, and by the way, I started microdosing the TRT instead of taking it as you suggested.
Yes.
And I basically just schooled the person that was providing me with my medication, and they were like, "Okay, well, yeah, we can do it."
That's what they say. They're like, "Okay, sure, bro."
Yeah. Like we can do it that way if you want. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing, so this is fine. But like, unfortunately, this is the world, and this is why I love doing content like this. I love what guys like you are doing because it gets information to people. With circling back to these just general information on peptides.
Sure.
The way I kind of see this is there's kind of like three categories as far as like reasons to use peptides. And I feel like there's healing or recovery of some sort. There's optimization or longevity, and then there's performance. And I think performance can be a combination of those two things, right? There's obviously fat loss, muscle growth, performance-based ones. Yes. But performance might be using BPC and TB 500 to improve an injury so that you can get back on the field faster, right? Or whatever it may be. So there's obviously crossover. But with regards to these three categories, what do you see as the most common reason? So healing, is it a gut? Is it a joint? Whatever. Yeah. And what are the primary? I know there's a lot of peptides, but just like the big hitters that are popular that people would probably ask about in each case.
So basically the way I classify them, and these are good questions. Like I said, bro, you're doing a great job asking me questions. It's hard. I do a lot, and I don't get a lot of great questions, but I appreciate when I do. So thank you. But when I classify peptides, I do it. And again, one of my gifts is breaking things down that are very esoteric and arcade into very relatable terms. So it's like the easiest way for your listeners and any listeners to hear this is like, I have an issue with X, what peptide attends to that, condition, right? So like what you're saying. So I like to look at them as like muscle building, fat burning, cognitive enhancing, healing, which you said, which is the biggest one for sure. And then you've got longevity, right? So it's like there's technically four. You could say healing and longevity are the same, realistically, because they do, obviously there's multiple applications, but let's just start with healing. So the biggest movers are, we already talked about them, BPC 157, TB 500. BPC increases angiogenesis, so it speeds the rate of healing, and then TB 500 is the inflammation suppression. Put them together, bam, massively speed the rate of healing. Add in copper peptide GHKCU to that mix, and you'll even get faster healing. Now, copper peptide should be mentioned on its own because it's also the rejuvenation peptide. It's a hair regrowth and restoration peptide. So it does a lot of things. I like to call it the ShamWell peptide because it does so many different things. But women use copper peptide GHKCU for eliminating fine lines and wrinkles, rejuvenation, just improving skin elasticity and tone and stuff like that. So that's a great one. And then remember I mentioned you Cardilax, which is a new one. But Cardilax is going to be a massive like mover and shaker peptide within the next 6 months as more and more people find out about it because it's so profound. And then I'll mention two other ones, Thymosin Alpha 1. Thymosin Alpha 1 I use whenever I fly around. I fly a lot, all right? Fly around the world, fly transcontinental. I inject it before I get off, and then I inject it when I get to my hotel room or my Airbnb when I get home because it's a super powerful immunomodulator. What that means is it improves immunity, right? So like, you're on these planes and God knows, dude, what they're spraying on us to kill us. Right. So it's like you get on and off and it's like, man, I'm going to inject some Thymosin Alpha 1 because I want to enhance my immunity. I want to prevent from getting sick or illness. And honestly, dude, since I started doing that in 2020, I haven't got sick, no COVID, none of the bullshit, And I know that I was sprayed because, dude, like when you're really sensitive and in tune with what's going on, when they're spraying in the plane because you just can feel it going to your throat. And you're like, oh, I don't want to get a sinus infection. But that's a great one. There's some other ones I won't mention. I'll briefly mention LL37 and VIP. VIP stands for vaginal intestinal peptide. Those are super powerful, like knockout peptides if you get really sick. Like if you get some bioweapon bullshit, you want LL37 on hand because it's super anti-pathogenic, anti-virogenic, antimicrobial. I mean, it'll knock out anything and kill it, but you want to save that like in really bad situations. And then vaginal intestinal peptide, or VIP, is a nasal inhaler. You can also inject it, but like if you get blocked in your sinus from God knows what, you can literally inject that and it massively opens your airways. So that's an amazing peptide, along with LL37, to keep in your refrigerator, keep around your house all the time in case they hit us with God knows what. Moving out of healing, we'll move into growth hormone, fat loss and muscle building. Go
Real
ahead.
quick, I would love to add, I'm going to add something and then I'm going to ask a question about the healing properties. Just to add, if people listening, again, this is like most things in life. This all comes back down to money and what they want to control. Because even like you're talking about regenerating your skin and getting rid of wrinkles. Okay, well, there goes all the people in the medical field that make a lot of money doing Botox or the hair transplant surgeries, all these things that cost tens of thousands of dollars. Like all these things boil back down to like it's putting the power and the control into the hands of the person going through the issue and removing it from the doctor or whoever else, which is crazy. But the follow-up question to those two is what, because my mind is going to, especially with like the tissue regrowth stuff. It's like obviously there's, you tear your ACL, your meniscus, whatever, but also leaky gut syndrome or these different issues where you have internal issues. This is obviously something that could be helpful for that too. When you say it's speeding up recovery, how fast are we talking here? Obviously, I'm sure it's, the magic is in the dose, but just so people can understand the difference between, is it that much faster than having surgery? So, I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, again, there's factors, right? Like the age of the cells, right? So younger person, healthier person, less inflammation, less body fat, they're going to heal at a faster, more accelerated rate than a non one of those people. But it's 7 to 10 times faster, right? So again, like the best way to say it, like a 30-year-old man or woman, good health, fitness, train, have muscle, or low body fat, if they tear their distal bicep tendon, off the bone, it's going to take 4 to 6 months to heal. And most likely the bone or the bicep tendon on the bone will always be broken and not there. It'll be like, you'll see that, when they get healthy and it flexes, the bicep will cut off right there. If you inject BPC, it's a fighter injury. If you inject BPC or TB500 into that area, dude, I swear to God, it'll be healed in 6 to 8 weeks. Now that's regularly, right? So, I mean, again, I said 4 to 6 months, now 6 to 8 weeks. So it's 7 to 10 times faster, mathematically, again, depending on that person's rate of healing and their cellular age and how good a shape and how good their nutrition and sleep and all that stuff is. But it's pretty profound. And going back to what else you said too, because I'm glad you brought it up. We're literally about to come out with a hair regrowth product that, I'm not joking, is going to cost probably $1,000, but it'll regrow hair on a cue ball. So going to Turkey and spending 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 grand for a hair transplant, guys won't need to do that. Now, again, the people that get the best response are the best cellularly healthy people. So you can't be a fat, flaming, pizza, beer drinking dumpster fire with no hair and think you're going to get better results with that than somebody who takes great care of themselves and sleeps and eats meticulously. You'll still get something, but you're not going to get the hair regrowth that somebody else does. And just so I can say this for this show, because I don't talk about this and people get mad, very few people in the world even knows what causes hair loss. The average person who knows something about it thinks it's due to DHT inhibition or DHT diminutizing the follicles in the scalp. It's completely not true. How we lose hair as we get older is due to blood flow restriction to the scalp. So what causes that? Dude, hundreds of thousands of things. Yeah. Heavy metal exposure, sunlight, EMF, just eating poorly, killing, obviously, insulin signaling and receptors sensitivity to your head because you're not getting blood flow up there anymore. I mean, again, there's so many causal agents. But people, when I say that, they'll ask me, well, if that's true, if you hung upside down, would you have better hair growth? The answer is yes. There are people out there that literally hang in traction things for like 30, I swear to God in my life. I mean, I know some of these people, they hang in those traction things for like 30 minutes a night and they put GHKCU on their scalp and a red light cap and their hair stays great, even with genetic, androgenic alopecia, which is a genetic predisposition to hair loss. So depending on how aggressive, anal retentive you are, you can keep your hair even if you're genetically prone to lose it. You just have to do the right things. And so that's what it is. What causes hair loss is blood flow restriction. Yeah. And this is like a point that you made about just somebody being healthy, causing a better response to some of these things. This is why, and I just want to point this out because stem cells is a similar topic, of discussion. And I think a lot of people, they don't understand this part, and so they assume any stem cell is going to work, and it's not. Unfortunately, it's illegal in the United States. But if you get stems, I watched my dad do this too because he had to end up getting double hip surgery on both sides, and he went the stem cell route, paid out.
Dude, my dad did too, by the way.
Man, like, when he gets stem cells for this, they're his stem cells. I'm like, your stem cells are not going to be the same as the stem cells from a baby fetus that they're getting in Argentina or Mexico or wherever. And so those healthy cells are going to work rapidly. That's why the UFC has that center in Mexico that fighters go to.
Yeah, exactly. But by the way, did your dad get any benefits from his own stem cells? Probably not, right?
I think he felt better for like a month at most.
Exactly.
Maybe
2 weeks.
Yeah, and he's a golfer and stuff, so he started feeling everything. But I for all we know, it could have been placebo.
I mean, dude, don't even get me going on that. But at least your dad did stem cells. My dad wouldn't even do that, dude. My dad is just get old naturally and die. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, not going to try anything experimental. It's insane. He's needed testosterone for 30 years. But I mean, again, it is what it is. But to your point, getting back to that and just, keeping going with the peptides, you do have to make a decision because the system is designed to suck you dry, right? Hair regrowth, Botox. I mean, Botox for women, it never ends. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just you constantly are injecting in a virulent, pathogenic agent that God knows what that's going to do over time either, right? Because it's literally paralyzing your cells so that your skin stays. I mean, I've never done any of that. I won't do that. I'm just going to get old. I mean, I'll use peptides and other stuff, but I'm not going to do shit like that. But hey, my wife does it. And I understand women, they want to look younger and feel younger and blah, blah, blah. And if you have the money and the means and you have the right person, fine, go for it, right? But it's like, at the end of the day, it's expensive, like you said, and it never ends versus, these peptides and bioregulators and serums and injectables and all these new things. And they're probably going to offer as good, if not better. But Cody, the issue is, like you said, like, you have to become the proactive scientist of your own health. You have to learn how to use these. You have to reconstitute, you have to take ownership. And a lot of people don't want to take ownership. They just want to be children and they want somebody else to do it for them, whether it's a doctor or a nurse or whatever. And if they're like, hey, I make enough money, I've been successful in my life, I want to do it that way. I don't want to put my brain under the pressure of having to learn how to do this myself. And that's cool if that's the path you want to go. But I mean, I teach people how to do it themselves.
Yeah. And the listeners of this podcast, they want that.
Exactly.
That's why they're listening. So, okay. So we touched on healing. Now let's move into either, optimization or performance, whatever one you want to tackle first.
Yeah. So let's do it. So we'll go 3 more down. So fat loss and muscle building, which would be performance. So you've got the best ones are GH agonist peptides. There's 3 that are worth mentioning. There are others, but that is Tesamorelin, which is actually a pharmaceutically approved, FDA approved peptide called Agrifta. And that peptide was made for men that have HIV because they get this disease that is known as lipodystrophy. And lipodystrophy, when you have HIV, is basically this hard visceral fat right around the belly. So if a person like you and me, who's into longevity for using these peptides, injects that right into around the belly button area, it shreds through belly fat. So very powerful peptide to shred through belly fat. The next one would be Ipamorelin. And Ipamorelin is probably the number 1 GH agonist peptide, most well known. It's also the most studied. It has the least amount of side effects because it does not disturb the body's endogenous production of growth hormone, right? So like our pituitary is what releases growth hormone. As we get older, it releases less and less. That's why people inject human growth hormone, which, by the way, human growth hormone is amazing. A microdose of human growth hormone is going to be better than any GH agonist peptide. And also, I like to say this to people because a lot of people in the medical community get this confused. As we get older, we don't produce natural growth hormone, right? Like our IGF-1 levels fall. And so if peptides theoretically increase natural IGF-1 production, then if you don't have any, what is a peptide actually doing, right? So like if you're in your late 50s and your early 60s and you don't have any IGF-1, and you can obviously go get it measured, you can get a lab test. Peptides have very limited viability, right? So it's like if you're one of those people then you need to just go on human growth hormone and stay on a microdose of human growth hormone forever. And it's very affordable now. You know, if I said that 5 years ago, people would be like, yeah, but Jay, it's $6,000 a month to have a script for growth hormone. Not anymore. You can buy it overseas and get that. You can get a year's supply of human growth hormone in a pen for $4,500. Right. And most people can afford that. But back to the growth or the GH agonist peptides, IPA is great. And then the next one would be CJC-1295. And that's a very strong growth hormone agonist peptide. I don't like it as much because a lot of people feel like a flushing. They feel kind of like a niacin. You know, they don't get nauseous, but you feel it for a couple minutes after you inject it. So I don't like it as much as the other two because the other two don't produce that. But all three of those peptides increase natural growth hormone production. They improve skin elasticity. They improve deeper sleep. Definitely help with fat loss if your diet's on point. If you're using therapeutic testosterone or therapeutic hormones, it can help with muscle building too. But those are your three biggest needle movers. Now, to stay on performance, we probably should talk about the mitochondrial optimizing peptides, and there's three of those. There's MOTS-C, 5-amino-1-MQ, which can be taken orally or injectable, and then the other one, which is my favorite one, is called SS31. And SS31 is my favorite peptide because it's essentially an amplifier peptide. And what that means is if you're on therapeutic testosterone or even growth hormone and anything else, it amplifies the cell's signaling cascades and pathways. So what that means is, like, for example, if you're on testosterone or growth hormone, your androgen receptors are peaked or popped or amplified when you're taking SS31. So you can actually use less growth hormone, less therapeutic testosterone, and get a similar effect if you were using more. So SS31 is an amazing peptide. Obviously, it also amplifies and optimizes your mitochondria spin, the rate of spin. So it's just a really awesome peptide to take when you're into full health optimization. MOTS-C is as strong as SS31, but it's probably better for people that are heavier and more metabolically deranged because it turns your mitochondria on. Somebody like me or you who's already pretty health optimized, you already have pretty good functioning mitochondria, so you won't feel MOTS-C as much as somebody who's heavy and has too much inflammation or too much body fat, especially visceral body fat. So that's a really good peptide for heavy people. It's also a really good peptide for a person who's fat and wants to get in shape, but says they have no energy to train or to exercise or to do cardio. If you give them MOTS-C and therapeutic testosterone at the same time, they have energy. And so it really can be a good needle mover to get them over the hump, to get them to a point where they can lose, 20, 30 pounds and then feel good enough about themselves that they can continue and lose all the fat. So I love that. And then the other peptide is 5-amino. And 5-amino can be orally consumed up to 150 milligrams a day or injected. I think the injectable format is a little bit better and a little bit more effective, but it's also similar to MOTS-C in that it will enhance mitochondrial optimization and power. So you'll have more strength in the gym, more force production, and more energy when you're doing cardio. And again, if you're heavy, you're just going to feel better, right? Because again, heavy people, they're inflamed. They don't feel like you and I. They're not motivated to go to the gym because they just don't have the energy to exercise. But if you give them those mitochondrial peptides, they feel a lot better and they usually get that energy. So those would be like my top 6 peptides for like performance enhancement.
I love that you touched on growth hormone briefly too, just because I think that there's some of these that have names that are commonly and stereotypically associated with performance enhancing drugs for bodybuilding, especially in the fitness world, and there's a lot of bodybuilders that have died over the years, and the media just points a finger at steroids, and steroids is this huge umbrella topic of like what people don't realize when somebody dies from steroids is that they're taking a lot of different things. They're taking extreme dosages, and I mean I've been to Mr. Olympia. These dudes are freaks, and seeing them in person, I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing show to see. They are so big. Like it is, it's insane.
They're cartoon characters, dude.
They are. It is wild. So I just wanted to mention that because I know of a little boy who he had a lot of stunning growth. He's taking growth hormone every single day because his doctors try him to make sure that he grows up and is big enough, So people need to know more about these topics. But quick question on some of those.
Sure.
What I experimented with one of the growth hormone secretagogue peptides and I want to say it was Ipamorelin and something else. I can't remember. It was a couple years
It was
ago.
probably IPA and CJC together. You'll see that a lot. Yeah.
Yes. And it was a daily subcutaneous injection. And that's part of the reason why, for me, I am younger and I don't, it's not something I needed, but I was starting to experiment. I like doing that because my clients ask questions and stuff. And it just, I don't want to take that every day. Like, it's just annoying. Are all of them this way? Are some of them, you just take bigger doses? It's just a question I thought of that I probably should ask because people are probably wondering, well, like, how often do I got to take this stuff?
Yeah. So, most injectable peptides you take at least 5 to 6 days a week. If it's a growth hormone agonist peptide, you're going to take it daily to get the effects. But healing peptides or cognitive enhancing peptides, you can probably inject it 2 or 3 times a week. It's not every day. For BPC and TB500, if you're severely injured and critically injured, or acutely, you have acute tear, you're going to take that twice a day until the inflammation is gone.
Got it.
So, again, depending on how much you know about these things and how used to you are, you're using a 31 or a 32 gauge needle. The big advancement, because this is now we're going down the rabbit hole. The big advancement now in peptides is you can use pens. So you can use a medical grade pen to inject multiple peptides at one time, which is a game changer. I've been using a pen now for close to a year, and that's massively, radically upregulated my peptide game. In fact, this morning, I have to do this now every 6 months. I made 6 new pens, and it was 6 pens of my peptides, right? So it's like the primary peptides I use are BPC and TB500 together, right? I always have a pen of that because you never know when injury is going to strike. I use my GLP-1 peptide, the triple stage agonist, a GLP-3, which is called retatrutide. I always have a pen of that. I have a pen of melanotan 1 because melanotan 1 darkens my skin and also enhances my consciousness. And then I have thymosin alpha 1, which is the immunomodulator peptide that I always have because you never know when you're going to get sick. And plus I travel so much. And then the other 2 peptides are tirzepatide, which my wife and I every now and then use. It's an appetite suppression peptide. It's also a stage 2 GLP. A lot of people use that as they know it as Mounjaro or Zepbound. And then the last peptide is SS31, right? The amplifier peptide. So it takes me now like every 6 months I redo the pens. Because they're each like in a cartridge. I don't have it in front of me right now, but they're each in a cartridge or 3 milliliter cartridge. So a 3 milliliter cartridge is going to last a person like 4 to 5 months, depending on how much they use it. So, but it massively speeds up your life use of that because you don't have to reconstitute. You're not pulling out an insulin syringe. And seriously, Cody, I don't have it on me right now, but it's a 4 mm needle. So you could jab your eyeball with it and not feel it.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, honestly, dude, I inject here, I inject here. I inject my glutes. I injected my lower abs and my belly button. I have no fat right now on my lower abs, so like I have to be cautious that I don't hit the muscle.
Right.
But in truth, man, it's changed the game for peptides. Like most people that are using peptides that are pretty advanced now are using pens.
Yeah. Oh, this is insane, man. Okay, so as we kind of wind down, I feel like we've covered so much ground. I would love to just hear. Really, just for you to plug your company so people know where they can access some of this stuff. And I'm assuming, really, I can just kind of drop your content, your website, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But just kind of give us an idea of how do people access this kind of these peptides and going this route?
So for sure. So first off, my website is jaycampbell.com. It's just JAY and then like campbellsoup.com. And that site last month had 64,000 unique visitors. So it's like top 3 websites on planet Earth for peptide related information. There's a lot of biohacking information there, but as of last count, my SEO guy told me that we had 103 articles that are either top 5 rankings on Google. Nice. Now that's an amazing accomplishment for me because, bro, I've been heavily shadow banned and suppressed for my content. Obviously, I've been talking about testosterone since 2014. YouTube suppresses me, X suppresses me, Instagram suppresses me. It's crazy. I have really good social media teams. I got to give them all the credit, that they've even been able to get me up to I have like 55,000 followers on Instagram, which I have no idea how, because like I could have a 12 million impression post, like a series of posts on X, and I get 1 follower. It's such a scam, dude. Yeah. Like the ex-gods literally are like, oh no, we can't have Jay Campbell go viral. His information is too important. Like he would blow up the whole medical, the medical establishment. So we can't have, but it's crazy because I've had all these teams over the years, but again, shout out to them. But you can find me obviously on social media. It's Jay Campbell 333. I don't know if you can see it over here, but 333 stands for the connection between master teachers and spirit. Obviously, I know a lot about peptides and hormones, but truthfully, bro, my jam is consciousness now. I talk to people about raising their consciousness. That's like the most important thing for me. So I know we didn't talk about that today, but we could always come back if you wanted me to bring back and talk about this. But my company is BioLongevity Labs, and we launched it in October of last year. And I really honestly do have the envision. It's not envision, it's the knowledge that it's going to become the Amazon for biohackers. Our goal is to ship globally, which we're already doing right now. There are definitely countries in EU and Scandinavian countries that will not let our products come in no matter what we do or how we attempt to get them to you. So if you live in Switzerland or you live in Denmark, don't try to buy it and ship it to us because you won't get it. They will steal it at your customs. I do have a affiliate code. Again, I own the company, so it doesn't matter, but it's JAYC, and it's every time you use that code, you get 15% off our products. Just to talk about our products for a second, every single product that we make is manufactured in the United States. It's all GMP compliant. It's all sterility process and controlled. Both of the labs that we make, one is in Philadelphia, one is in Orlando, Florida. They are both FDA registered and certified. Again, research is not FDA approved. It's a big scam, right? Like you got to pay for play. I mean, to be FDA approved, you have to go through all these, rites of passage and pay the FDA as many bribes as you possibly can to get that. But we are FDA certified and registered in both of our labs. So anybody who buys our products is going to get the real McCoy. You're not getting, low quality ingredients that are coming out of a rat, a rat infested container from China. Everything's made in the United States. So we have amazing products though, dude. Like we have 82 SKUs as of right now. So, I mean, any research peptide that's oral or injectable that is worth anything we sell. We have 6 proprietary oral formulations that are the best in the industry right now. We have a product called BioGut Pro, and it literally will cure any gut dysbiotic issue or condition within 2 to 3 weeks. It has every single gut enhancing or gut destroying peptide, KPV, BPC, TB500, Tributrin, PEA. I mean, every single thing. It's like a kitchen sink peptide. And then we also have one called BioMind, and it's brand new, by the way. It's only 3 weeks old, but it's a nootropic peptide. And we have three products in that: Dihexa, the nootropic peptide, J147. Now, most people don't know what J147 is, but it's actually a stage 2 Alzheimer's drug that's showing incredible promise in clinical trials. And then it's got Noopept in it. So that nootropic, it's an oral capsule. You take 2 in the morning. I will put that nootropic up against pretty much anything in the marketplace. Like, it doesn't cause jitteriness. It will not stimulate heart rate or accelerate your heart rate, so you're not going to get wired. It just like makes the lights brighter. Like, you just have more focus. Everything just seems better. And it also kind of puts you in a good mood. And then the other product that I would want to mention is Metashred. And Metashred is the strongest fat loss oral product in the world. It's a mitochondrial supplement with SLU PP-332 combined with a product called BAM15, and BAM15 is a metabolic uncoupler. So the bodybuilder bros that are watching this show, they all know what DNP was, and DNP, you can't use because it's so bad and so high risky for you. But this is like a safe version of DNP. So you can take it, increase sweating, increase resting thermogenesis. Anyone who takes it before exercise will sweat more and have a more productive workout because it also enhances force production. So those 3 oral supplements that we sell are absolutely best in class, top of the line, tip of the spear. So, if you're interested, just use the code JC or JAYC and you'll get 15% off your purchase.
I love it, man. Super, super helpful. I'm going to link all that in the description of this podcast so people can go check all that out, as well as your content, your products, everything. One final quick question for you that I ask all my listeners, because this podcast is the Choose Hard podcast, is just what choose hard means to you in your daily life.
Yeah, so choose hard is a great point or statement. This way I look at it, I'll just throw a consciousness angle in there for you. We come here as souls to evolve and grow. And you're going to evolve and grow the most by choosing to deal with contrast. So every time your life deals you an obstacle in your path, whatever it is, don't complain. Don't become a victim. Embrace it. look into it, grasp it, and say, thank you, God, for providing this challenge for me, because when I overcome it or I solve it, I'm going to be that much better evolved as a soul. And that is the whole purpose for my growth as a human being, to evolve and grow my soul. So there's no such thing as, debacles, fiascos, mishaps, problems. There are only solutions, but it's up to you to see how to solve whatever is put in your way. And again, the bigger the obstacle, the greater the contrast, the greater the opportunity for growth.
Oh man, I love that. Such a great answer. Thank you, dude. Thank you. Thank you for spending the time. This has been amazing. I appreciate it a ton. I learned a lot. I know the audience is going to learn a lot. I'm going to link all your stuff in the show notes so they can check that out. And again, I just appreciate you coming on the show and spending time with me.
Dude, I love your goatee. I wish I could get my goatee as dark as yours. But man, honestly, thank you for having me, man. It was a great show. You have a great way with your guests, and your questions were beautiful. So let me know how I can serve you further. I'd love to.